Funding bodies play a critical role in the kinds of feature film projects that are developed. These same bodies also play a critical role in the green lighting of feature films and invest in large sums of taxpayers' money in them, believing that Australian and international audiences will pay money to see them. Should these bodies bear their share of responsibility when the films that they have backed fail both at the box office and in critical terms?
I think, certainly, we do our very, very best to make sure that the screenplay, we have a collaborative relationship with the producers. And at the end of the day, you're the producer. We're not hiring and firing and making, the decisions about when to green light or not. I mean, speaking in terms of how we work in the development department, we have I think in the vast majority of cases, a very collegiate and supportive relationship with the producers, writers, directors that we're working with. And if they're deciding to move down the corridor and go to production and we think the script isn't ready, we will speak to them about that. But at the end of the day, it's their decision. We're not a studio. We're not actually the ones kind of, making the film. The producers are making the films that you make. And of course, like everyone, it is a big guesswork. All we can do is bring our experience and our judgment and enter into a dialogue with the filmmakers. But we're all in this together and we're all trying to make good movies. So, I mean, there's certainly, when films don't do well, there's certainly dialogue that goes on. But I have to be honest, there's not a lot of kind of mea culpa. There's, let's learn from this. What was it that was wrong with that? Like everyone, we try and look at why some films surprisingly haven't done as well as others, The Loved Ones being one of them. And I think that was a really good film. And
excellent.
So to be honest, there's always, a reflection around why things don't work. But at the end of the day, we are here supporting you, and you are at the end of the day, the filmmakers.
Now, Christopher and Stephen and Al, as producers and distributors, how do you deal with the fact that a project has underperformed? Where do you draw the line between blaming each other and moving on to learning about analyzing what happened, to try to learn from the experience and then move on and try not to do the same thing again, the same mistake again?
You always have sweat beads before a film opens, and you generally have a reasonable idea of how it's going to perform if you're tracking a film and you're in touch with your audience. So, you mentioned The Loved Ones, and I also mentioned earlier that the interesting thing is that foreignly it's looking like it's still going to do pretty well for us, and it does just plays to that Australia can struggle, and understanding that type of film, even though the online environment was very supportive of it, and the date was probably a bit of a squeeze to go up against Jackass. Look, at the end of the day, you have to learn from your mistakes, and one always wishes that you could learn from other people's mistakes, but the reality is that anyone that tells you that you can learn solely by that is probably kidding you. And one needs to make your own mistakes and hopefully only make small ones. So you certainly don't want to be rolling your first set of dice, putting absolutely everything against that. However, sometimes that adversity to losing everything produces the best quality as well, and that passion. So yeah, you've got to continue to learn from it.
Now, Stephen, as a distributor, you have so many titles that you're working with that there's not enough time to sit down and analyze what's happened with all of them. So what do you do? What's the process at Sony when a film underperforms? How much of analysis do you make of the results of this film?
No, we do. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And it's the old adage, you learn more from your mistakes than you do from your successes. That's pretty clear. But we do, and I think sometimes we will recognise a failure through the picture, and whether there's been enough honesty about how good the picture is. And, our job is to present the film and sell it in the best possible way. If that is an ugly-looking mutt, I'm telling you, we're going to make it look like an absolute prince or a princess, and in whatever shape or form that is. That is our job to the producers, the filmmakers. And someone out there is going to love it. We're just got to find them, and enough of them, we hope. But when they do fail, we do go through it. And Chris just mentioned a couple of things, and when we do look at its release date, timing and issues, we do look at the quality of the product. We look at the spend and the areas of spend that went into it. We certainly have exit poll research that happens on occasions for, usually of the bigger films, that they are either needing to foster a development with that filmmaker or a franchise element, that they are going to do some long-term investment into it. And we do have that with regards to the stars, the people that are attached with it, publicity coverage. We look at critical reviews and how that was responded. So, there's plenty of people too in the public domain, both in print and television, broadcast and online, that are going to tell us where we screwed up, I can assure you, and we hear it around the place. And we also are reflective of how we have done with that film in the international marketplace, us versus Germany, and the UK versus America. And we've got percentages, we've got particular scales and relative expectations about what we should be doing across a film versus some other territories, be it even New Zealand and interstate. I mean, where our business comes from, New South Wales versus Queensland and Victoria. And some genres and pictures do better in those states, in different areas and different locations than others. So, look, honestly, we do. We have a good look at it and make sure that we learn from it. And honestly, it sometimes becomes pretty apparent.
Al, as a producer, do you even think of the concept of failure, and how do you define it?
Well, naturally, you have your own ideas about what its potential is. By the time you've spent long enough in the company of your distributor, you are usually united in that aspiration. But the fact is that the body language says it all. Together again for the first time. The one thing that I think is really important in the decision making, probably one of the most important things of all as the marketplace gets more and more crowded and competitive, is the date on which your film comes out. Because the climate is so unforgiving and the first weekend is treated either as a chair to carry you around the streets in or a stick to beat you with, it's too much revolves around it. And as a consequence, what you need in your first week is a clear run at your own audience. I'd have to go back 5 or 6 years to, actually more than that, 10 years to Two Hands, much of whose eventual $5.5 million Australian box office, I think, was to do with choosing a date where if you were predisposed to that kind of film, that is all you had. That's the only one you could go and see. And the film turned out to be pretty good anyway, and so the word of mouth took off from there. But I always wonder, and I always think of it as a prototype of really good judgment and good luck in not having anyone invade their space. There was a fabulous interview that Steve Martin did with David Letterman some years ago when Steve Martin was in a comedy thriller called Novocaine, which is coming out the same day as a Harry Potter film. And Letterman asked him what on earth was he thinking about. And Martin said, well, the way I saw it was that Harry Potter has a very, very specific target market, which is absolutely everyone. And our film is for anyone who isn't absolutely everyone.
Yeah, I've got to harp back to that date, and honestly, it's just unbelievable that you can fall over at the start gates when you've got such a good product because of that release date. It is just that everything, all elements can come together, and it will collapse on the start line, and it is so horrible. And 15 years ago in this business, I used to work for Hoyt's, Fox, Columbia, TriStar Films. Can you believe that? In the old days when Hoyt's had a thing, and Fox and Columbia, so 3 studios. And we used to dump movies into the marketplace that were, I would best describe them as DVD driven, and we would dump them in because there was space in there and we could make some money out of them. And they would platform them, profile them, and set them up really, really nicely for their, in those days, VHS, cassette, product life cycle, and then onto TV, and these days, obviously, DVD. These days, you forget it. I mean, we've had some films with some really top-class stars and good thrillers. I'm just trying to think of just something like Vacancy was a good little thriller, and we just can't squeeze them into the marketplace. It is unforgiving. You will lose between $250,000 to $750,000 by trying to platform that film into the marketplace, and you will never recover it from the DVD market and TV sales. And if you notice the TV market too, and it's a very buoyant and it's a wonderful, wonderful media area at the moment, but think about now the Sunday night at the movies, they're not on. I mean, the opportunities and the amount of product, the film movies that the actual networks are taking are so limited now. They're not the TV fees that are being paid for feature films. There's only a few opportunities for them. So I've just got to say, it really has changed, and to our point and to everyone's too, is that you can do all this right and then it gets to the final hurdle and you've got to get it right. There's 350 films released a year. You know, it's on average maybe 300 to 350, 6 to 7 films per week. 2 or 3 may indeed be limited, 2 to 15 print releases, but the rest are usually commercial. Boy, you've got to know your audience and better get ready for where you're going with it in that first week, because it's murder.